I previously talked about leave orders from EU member states to UK citizens after Brexit, but of course that happened as well vice versa. As of March 2023, the UK Home Office has issued leave orders to 1,333 EU citizens after Brexit. These orders are given to EU citizens who do not have the right to live in the UK or have broken the terms of their immigration status. The majority of the leave orders, with 75%, were issued to EU citizens who had overstayed their visas. Other reasons for leave orders include working without permission, being a burden on the public purse, or having a criminal record. It's important to note that the number of leave orders issued is just a small fraction of the total number of EU citizens living in the UK. According to the Office for National Statistics, there were an estimated 3.6 million EU citizens living in the UK in 2022. The vast majority of EU citizens who want to stay in the UK have been able to do so by applying to the EU settlement scheme. This scheme allows EU citizens and their family members to apply for settled or pre-settled status, which gives them the right to live, work, and study in the UK, and in the end indefinitely. As of March 23, the EU settlement scheme has received over 5.8 million applications. Of these, over 5.5 million have been granted settled or pre-settled status. So, while there have been a small number of EU citizens who have been issued leave orders, the vast majority have been able to stay in the UK. And there are a number of reasons why EU citizens have been expelled from the UK since Brexit. And these include, as I said, overstaying their visas. This is the most common reason for EU citizens being expelled. EU citizens who overstay their visas are considered to be illegal immigrants and are liable to be deported. And then we had working without permission. EU citizens who work in the UK without a work visa or the settled status are also liable to be deported. And the third was being a burden on the public purse. EU citizens who are considered to be a burden on the public purse, such as those who are unemployed or have a criminal record, may also be expelled. Being considered a threat to national security was another point. EU citizens who are considered to be a threat to national security may also be expelled. It's important to note that the UK government has a policy of deporting EU citizens only as a last resort, contrary to others. The government will usually try to find other ways to resolve the situation, such as allowing the EU citizen to stay in the UK on a different basis, such as a student visa or a work visa. The UK government has also said that it will not expel EU citizens who are settled in the UK, have a job, and are paying taxes. However, there have been a number of cases of EU citizens being expelled from the UK, even though they met these criteria. And this has led to accusations that the UK government is not being fair to EU citizens. The UK government has defended its policy, saying that it is necessary to protect the UK's borders and its national security. However, the government has also said that it is committed to treating EU citizens fairly and humanely. Before Brexit, EU citizens could live and work in the UK without any restrictions. They did not need a visa or a work permit. They were also entitled to the same benefits and services as British citizens. However, there were a few things that EU citizens had to do to live legally in the UK. They had, as I learned, to register with the UK Border Agency within 3 months of arriving in the UK, and they had to have a valid passport or other travel document and have sufficient means of support. And they couldn't be a threat to national security. If an EU citizen did not meet these requirements, they could be refused entry to the UK or be deported. After Brexit, the rules for EU citizens living in the UK changed. EU citizens now need to apply to the EU settlement scheme if they want to stay in the UK. The scheme allows EU citizens and their family members to apply for settled or pre-settled status, as I said, which gives them the right to live, work, and study in the UK indefinitely. The deadline for applying to the EU settlement scheme was June 30th in 2021. However, there is a grace period for those who missed the deadline. They can still apply to the scheme, but they must have have a very good reason for it and may have to pay a late fee. And EU citizens who do not apply to the EU settlement scheme and do not have another valid immigration status will be considered to be legal immigrants since June 30th and 22 already. They could be refused entry to the UK, be deported or fined. And if an EU citizen does not fall under the EU settlement scheme, they will need to apply for a visa to live in the UK. The type of visa they need will depend on their circumstances. There are some common types of visas for EU citizens I just want to mention. That's the work visa, for example. This type of visa allows you to work in the UK for a specific employer or in a specific occupation. The student visas, they allow you to study in the UK. And the family visas, this type of visa allows you to join your family members who are living in the UK already. Or a retirement visa. This type of visa allows you to live in the UK if you are retired. To apply for a visa, one needs to provide certain information. Their name and date of birth, the passport or another travel document, their immigration status in the UK if they already have one, their address in the UK, their employment details if they are working in the UK already, and their family members' details if they are applying for them to join them. And of course, the reason why they are applying for a visa. One can only apply for a visa online or by post. The application process and fees vary depending on the type of visa they are applying for. And once they've been granted a visa, they will be able to live in the UK for the duration of the visa. And they will also be able to access benefits and services such as healthcare and education. It's important to note that the rules for EU citizens living in the UK after Brexit are quite complex now and can change at any time. So everybody who's still thinking of moving to the UK should seek legal advice and to find out what's really going on. And there are some additional things to keep in mind. Everybody can apply for a visa even if they're not currently living in the UK. And they will need to renew their visa before it expires. And they may need to meet certain financial requirements to be eligible for a visa. And they may need to provide evidence of their ties to their home country, such as property ownership or employment. According to the Migration Observatory at the University of Oxford, the UK issued 43,000 visas to EU citizens in 2021. And this is a significant decrease from 230 to 430,000 EU citizens coming to the UK in the 6 years to March 2020. The decline in the number of visas issued to EU citizens is likely due to a number of factors, including the UK's withdrawal from the EU's freedom of movement rule, the COVID-19 pandemic and the economic downturn, but Brexit will play the biggest role. The UK government has said that it is committed to attracting skilled workers from all over the world, including the EU. However, it's clear that the rules for EU citizens living and working in the UK have become more restrictive since Brexit. And it remains to be seen how the number of visas issued to EU citizens will change in the years to come. However, it's likely that the number will remain below the pre-Brexit levels. And I not only mean visa, but the normal immigration there. The decline in immigration from EU to the UK has led to labour shortages in a number of sectors, including healthcare, hospitality and construction. Before Brexit, EU citizens, as I said, were able to move freely to the UK to work. I did that once. However, after Brexit, new immigration rules came into force that made it more difficult for EU citizens to come to the UK. As a result, the number of EU citizens coming to the UK to work has declined. And this decline in immigration has led to labour shortages in some sectors. For example, the NHS is facing a shortage of nurses, and the hospitality industry is facing a shortage of chefs and waiters. And the construction industry is also facing a shortage of workers. The government has taken some steps to address the labour shortages, such as offering visas to skilled workers from outside the EU. However, that did not really work to fill all of the vacancies. The labour shortages are likely to have a number of negative consequences for the UK economy. Businesses had to raise prices and reduce their output, and there was also a decline in the quality of services such as healthcare and education. The government is facing a difficult challenge in balancing the need to control immigration with the need to avoid labor shortages. It's most likely that the issue of labor shortages will be a major economic and political issue for the UK for many years to come. And I want to give you some more details about the labor shortages because that's really important. The NHS is facing a shortage of nurses, midwives, and other healthcare workers, and this is due to a number of factors, including the aging population, increasing demand for the healthcare services, and especially the decline in immigration from the EU. For example, in 2019, 40% of doctors in the UK were from the EU. And the hospitality industry is facing a shortage of chefs, waiters, and other staff. And this is due to the fact that many EU citizens who worked in the hospitality sector have returned to their home countries after Brexit. And I mentioned them before, the construction industry is also facing a shortage of skilled workers such as bricklayers, carpenters, and electricians. And this is also due to the fact that many EU citizens who worked in the construction sector have returned to their home countries after Brexit, or even in the run-up to Brexit. The labor shortages in these sectors are having a negative impact on the UK economy, and businesses are having to raise prices or reduce their output. And there is a lot like the waiting times in the NHS that everybody can see that it happens. And the government still has not found any recipe except their headlines with taking control of the borders and stuff like this. And the issue of labor shortages will really have a big impact, and it will stay for quite some time. The interesting part is that a lot of people from outside the EU are now coming to the UK. But that's a topic in another video in the next days as well, so I'll leave that out of this one. But many asked about I know all the whataboutism stuff. I usually just delete this whataboutism nonsense, but it is, of course, a question when I'm talking about UK citizens being expelled from EU countries that I, at one point, of course, like with the other series of who was preparing for Brexit, of course, I bring the topic in the UK as well. And so they could have known if they've known the channel. Nevertheless, it's not my only channel. There are some channels I'm not working on at the moment, and that's due to time, because I definitely have a limited time like everyone, and so the day only has 24 hours. And after the new STFC channel worked out fine right from the start, of course I have to concentrate on making videos there as well. And so there is a break at the moment on my books channel and some others, and the game channel, because they didn't start through like the STFC one. And I'm always testing a lot, and the STFC one is really going well. And that's why I'm concentrating there, so I can bring there a daily video as well. They are far more complicated to make than these videos here on this channel. And they need as much research and experience as I need for these videos, but the execution is a bit different. They need much longer in editing and so on, and that's why I have to put some others on pause. But of course, the live stream was only not there last week because of my birthday, but this week, of course, there is another live stream as usual. And if you want to see another video right now, the next video is right here in the end screen. I'll see you there. I'll be back.